Hi, everyone. Welcome to Planoly Presents Back to Social School. We are so excited to have you all on. Again, this is the parenting and posting panel. I'd love to know where all of you are from if you want to add it in our little chat box. And if you all are parents, non-parents are more than welcome, but would love to know how many are parents since that's the topic for today. So put on the chat box where you're from, if you're a parent, and just welcome everyone. We will get started in a minute and allow everyone to start coming in. But I'm Marlene. I am the Senior Manager of Brand Partnerships here at Planoly, and we have an amazing group of panelists today. And we can kind of get started, but I did want to tell everyone that we are giving away a free month of Planoly. And if you use the code Planoly Presents, it's a free month of Planoly for y'all to try out. If you're new to Planoly, welcome. And I see people are from Arizona, Charlotte, Mama, and then we have some from Ontario, Canada, Mama to a little one turning 2 next week. Yay! Well, we can get started. I'd love for our panelists to introduce yourself and your business, and through the lens of one quote or piece of advice from your parents that impacted who you are and what you do today. And we can start, I think, Amy, since you're up here next to me, and then go down from Sue Ann.
Okay, so what I do and then a really great quote about something that influenced me. Sure, so my name is Amy. I am dialing in from Auckland, New Zealand. I spent the good part of the last decade in New York, and I came back to my native country to have my first baby. I run a business called OKREAL, and OKREAL is just describing it to the ladies here. I like to speak of it as like a self-development platform for modern women who are looking to carve out life on their own terms. And we do that through workshops, panels, mentorship. We have digital courses, especially since the pandemic. That's been a really interesting shift, which I'm sure we'll get into, and ebooks and all of that good stuff. And in terms of a good piece of advice, I think that something that I've kind of built my career and my life around is deciding who you are and not letting anyone or anything get in the way of that. So that's kind of my mission, and that permeates everything I do in my life, how I parent, and how I run my business as well. So yeah.
Sue Ann.
Yeah, hi, I'm Sue Ann Song. I am the founder of a company called Appointed. We're here in Washington, D.C., and we manufacture and design everyday elevated paper goods. So anything that you use in your work process or to create or at school, notebooks, planners, desktop products, we manufacture them and we ship them out of our DC warehouse. And I started the company 5 years ago. I'm a graphic designer by trade, and I have 2 kids. One will be 3 on Saturday, and the other is almost 14 next month. So we, the last 6 months have definitely, like everyone, a challenge of juggling work and homeschool and daycare and all that. But one of the things I always remind myself, and I remind my team, we have a team of almost 10 people now, pretty regularly, is to always remember why we started and the problem that we set out to solve. It's easy now, especially more than ever, to get super distracted. Or for me, I'm a creative at heart, and I always want to create new things and different things. But I always have to remember what we're seeking to do for our customer, and that's to increase productivity, organization, creativity. And so that's a daily reminder. That's definitely, that reminder, the reason for that reminder has definitely changed in the last 6 months, just being able to stay focused. And but yeah, so that's one thing I have written in my notebook, and I always remind myself of.
Amazing. I guess I'll go. Hi, I am Sai De Silva. I am the founder of a blog called Scout the City. It originated because I had a daughter, and I just kind of didn't have any friends that were parents. So I started this digital journey, and now I also have a son who's added to it. So my daughter's 9 now, son is 3, and we chat about everything from wellness to parenting, a lot of fashion, but in a very transparent way where it looks glamorous, but I also show the very messy side of maybe my child having a meltdown in the supermarket. So I am pretty open to sharing those moments, because it's really nice when you can see other parents that are going through the same thing. But yeah, I just shoot a lot of aspirational and inspirational content pretty much daily. And I think one of my favorite quotes is "closed mouths don't get fed." I am a New Yorker through and through, so I just think it's just instills this hustle in you. If someone says no, that's fine. It means no now, but it's not going to mean no later.
Yeah,
And
it's a maybe, right?
That's me. Right. And like, oh, okay, I get it. Not right now. Totally fine. I'll come back later.
Yeah, it's just not the right time. Well, I have a question for all of you, and Sue Ann kind of touched on it a little bit, so I'll start with her, but I want all of y'all to please answer. What's been one of the biggest things you've learned about balancing the responsibilities of parenting and posting as we've navigated the effects of COVID-19? And kind of how would you describe your planning process? So it's a 2-part question.
So there have been my fair share of tears and meltdowns, and I know that every parent literally around the world is going through this. So it's hard to complain, but I think for me, given my business, I'm always in the business of streamlining and making more things more efficient and more organized. That's just the nature of my personality, and obviously of what the products that we create. But more so than ever, it's how can I make things easier, more efficient, whether it's from, meal planning to, because, having cooked every single meal for all of our family members for the last 7 months.
Yeah.
So it's just streamlining and making things more efficient, both for home and for work. And I think for the planning, and then the other thing is just being flexible. We're not, as parents, as entrepreneurs, as moms, we're not going to get to everything that we want to get to. And just to get over that sort of feeling of defeat, which early on, it was just, it's so overwhelming to have to manage your kids' Zoom calls, entertaining your 3-year-old, running your business. And so just sort of picking your battles and what you can do. And then if you can delegate, and use systems like Planoly or whatever, online systems that, project management systems that you use, and maximize those. And I like literally, I think every day I'm trying to figure out how can I streamline and make things efficient, just for my sanity mostly.
I know, I feel you on that. I don't have children yet, but I'm 5 months pregnant. And
oh, congratulations.
Thank you. And I feel, even when my husband's like, oh, what did you have for lunch and breakfast and dinner? And I'm like, you're not helping me make it. Like it's you have to really plan out your day, and I can only imagine with little ones. What about you, Amy?
So balance, I kind of given up on the idea of balance. I think it's a glamorous myth that we talk about, especially as women, as this kind of, we place it on this pedestal, like balance is the, I don't know, thing we should be striving for. And I just don't think it's realistic for me. I can't speak for everybody, but I've interviewed a lot of women who are like, balance, that doesn't exist. And so I try and find peace instead. And I think, well, what's going to bring me the most joy, what's going to bring me the most peace, and I try and think about it that way. And that often means that I'm not going to make, I don't meditate, I don't have time, or I don't exercise every day. I'm not doing the scraping the tongue and drinking the green juice and the lemon water every single day. And I think for me, my form of balance is like making sure my kid's happy and healthy, and my relationships are in a good state, and I'm getting my work done. And that looks different every day. So when it comes to posting and planning and all of that, we've had a huge shift I came back to New Zealand quite unexpectedly when I was pregnant. And so I'm raising a baby on one continent and then a business on another. I'm still very much, all of my client base is in New York. and the pandemic again. So much like parenting, you think you get a routine down when, you know, in terms of parallel with startup or running a business, and then all of a sudden something happens and everything goes out the window. So as Sue-Ann mentioned, maintaining flexibility, maintaining perspective, getting systems in place and having the right people around you to help enforce those systems. I love the idea of systems, but I need people to help me put them in place. So a really good team, and we use Planoly as well, and super helpful. Anything that makes my life easier in terms of planning things out, I'm a big fan of. But I think overall, yeah, balance is overrated. I think learning to thrive in chaos is a much more valuable skill than being perfectly balanced. So knowing that you're going to have to juggle a ton of balls, whether you're a working mom or not just a mom, but if whatever your role is, you're going to be busy. And so learning how to cope with that, you know, ever-changing environment, especially in current times. So yeah.
No, I agree. And Sai, that's kind of what you show. What about you?
I'm very with Amy on this. Amy sounds like a New Yorker. Like she's very much like,
Yeah.
you need to thrive
10
in
years.
the chaos.
Yeah.
You need to thrive in the chaos, which is absolutely right. I do think that balance is really just a non-attainable thing. It's just kind of like a myth. Especially if you are juggling more than one thing. Children are just another, as the homeschooling, the cooking for everybody all day, doing your own job. And I create content for a living, and I'm the face of the brand. So it's, oh, now there's TikTok, now there's Reels, then there was Snapchat. Now we're not doing Snapchat. We're on YouTube now. Are we no longer there? We're on Instagram. Okay. So it's just an abundance of things that I need to do. And at the end of the day, no matter how much planning I do, and I try my best to create an editorial calendar and kick those things out as far as shooting videos on certain days, but at the end of the day, my lifestyle is more very spontaneous, and it's in the moment because that's what I'm sharing. So the balance thing, let's just not be unrealistic. If balance is not working for you, then so be it. That's okay. Don't beat yourself up about it. Do what you can, do your best. Like it looks different to everyone, right? I never want anyone to feel like, you do so much and you do this, but I also don't really sleep much. So in order to get more out of the day, I really kind of snip out some of the things. Like I'm a 5-hour sleeper. So after that, you know, I try and stay sane. I do meditation for 5 minutes. That's all I have time for, really. And then until my mind starts racing and then the thoughts come in. And then just as far as a team, I'm with Amy on that. I need a team to kind of help me get life together, whether that be like helping me get appointments, and my husband is on my team as far as like helping with the kids and doing pickup and things like that, or it is my assistant that's like, hey, by the way, this is due. And not like a little shameless plug or anything, because this is Planoly, but I use Planoly with my work a lot, just because I have to get certain sponsored content approved, and it needs to be approved and go live on certain days. So it's really great to kind of plug that into Planoly, and then it just gives me an alert when I have to swipe, and it will post on its own. So that kind of gives me a little bit of relief. But anyway, all that to say, balance looks different.
Thank you. You did not pay
everyone.
them to do this plug.
Oh yes, and I did.
No.
Hashtag not an ad, not sponsored.
Not sponsored. No, I love that. Well, Sai, since I have you, I do have a question specifically for you. As you mentioned, a lot of your content intersects family, style, beauty, and wellness. And how has your approach evolved the most this year? And kind of a two-part question as well. Sorry, love have those two. So how has your approach evolved the most this year? And as we become more connected during this time, what have you learned about the impact of social media when it comes to how you navigate parenting in this digital age right now?
Really good questions, both of them. At first, and I want to go back to being connected. I feel like I'm almost at the point where I'm not connected, like I'm disconnected actually, just because I'm producing more content. Like things have, it seems like at first everyone was scared and tiptoed around, and it was a very tricky situation. And now all of a sudden I felt like it tripled, it exploded, and everyone was consuming content. And it was like an immediate, like, I need more, I need more. Like we weren't leaving our homes. We weren't really doing much. So we were kind of looking at what everybody else was doing for entertainment. Not everyone doesn't have cable in their house anymore, right? We're living in a different time where it's like, Netflix, and it's just a very immediate time in our lives. So all of a sudden it was kind of like, oh shit, I need to do more. Sorry guys. I need to do more. I need to do more. And it went from me being connected to all of a sudden I found myself working longer hours and longer days, but I would take those breaks like, oh, it's lunch. Let me make lunch for everybody. And then kind of go run back into my home office. So those things are a little bit different for COVID. So I would just say I got a lot more busier. And then my content and my job in general has changed and shifted to more home content, obviously, but more things that are relatable, right? We want to see, especially what I did see a huge jump on was like, what's organization look like for you? What's organized, whether that be in the kitchen or whether that be like, what are you making your kids for lunch? Like, how are you cooking every single day? Like, are you just like snacking, or, what are you eating in a day? Like, how are you getting through this? And, I had this whole thing where I started every day called Wine 30, around 5:30ish. I would just like do a little break and like check in with people. And that's when IG Live was starting to get really big again. And I would kind of just check in and like, what are we doing? Are we doing Wine 30, or are we doing a midday break kind of sort of situation? So content just shifted to just a lot more relatable content. And then did I answer the other question?
Yeah, I think you did. It was kind of how has your approach evolved the most this year? And it seems like it's kind of just showing, I think I saw you making snacks one day or something like that, like, just easy things and things that people need right now. I feel like we're connected the most this time, but also we need the most disconnect also.
Yeah.
It's like at one point we're on our computer all day because we don't have like, well, for me, I have a 9 to 5. So I don't have like, oh, it's going to be 5 o'clock. Let me wrap up, get in my car, drive home. Now it's so easy to just be like, oh, well, I'll keep working until I finish. But Planoly does like a really good job at trying to tell you don't do that. So we have like happy hours and things like that, trying the most to like, okay, get disconnected as much as possible. But I agree. It's like we're living very connected, but we need to try to disconnect a little bit.
Yeah, 1,000. Yeah, and I'm also finding that because people are working from home, again, there is no check-in or check-out. There is kind of like, I'm just going to send you an email at all hours of the night, and it's going to be totally fine because you're home. I found that whole thing, like it usually used to die down around 6 o'clock for me, but not anymore. It's just kind of like a free-for-all. Like everyone's just like, we're home.
I've seen some out of offices, which I thought was really smart to say, like,
that's nice.
Hi, I'll have a delay. I'll respond to you tomorrow, taking care of my 2 little ones and learning how to homeschool, or like things like
really
to
nice.
remind people like, oh, our everyday life's a little different right now.
I agree.
Well, I have a question for you, Sue-Ann. Appointed is rooted in planning and designed to inspire productivity and creativity, very elevated. How has running a planning-centric business affected how you approach making and sticking to plans in the role as a parent?
So pretty early on when it started quarantining in late March, we as a team recognized that we needed to change our messaging, especially once everyone's starting to work from home, school is closed down. And we never want to make our products make you feel less than, or that you're not achieving. Like that's the last thing we want to do. That's the opposite of what we want to do. And we felt that some of our messaging could be taken that way, where it's just everything is so overwhelming. So I think one of the first things we did also because right within the first 2 weeks of shutting down in March, we saw our revenue just dropping by the week by 50% in the month of March and April. And then it started to pick back up in April, mostly because we have half of our revenue is sold to, we sell to retailers, and all the retailers started closing. And so one of the things as an entrepreneur, is like many, we all had to pivot. We just had to pivot to respond to this time, figure out where our customers were and what our customers needed. And so our team came together and thought, what can we do for our community, for our customers? And one of the first things we did was we came up with a library of free downloads. Because all of a sudden you're working from home and you're homeschooling and you're having to cook every meal and you can't go out. And so what can we provide? So we provide, and the library is on our website and we'll keep it up for the foreseeable future. We update it pretty regularly. Meal planning downloads, how to like lists to help guide your student to keep track of their Zoom calls. And so that was one thing that we provided for our customers, is just better and easier resources, but also just to communicate to our customers that we just have to be flexible. We're managing so much, all of us, and so that's one thing that we're just trying to communicate to our customers, to be flexible. Don't write overwhelming to-do lists. And so that's definitely, as a brand, we're seeing we're needing to pivot. And then the other thing, going back to your other question about social media, is as a brand, we're trying to be socially conscious and be part of the dialogue. I mean, we make notebooks and planners for a living, but that doesn't mean as a brand we can't participate in the really important conversations that are going right now, whether it's having to do with Black Lives Matter or voting. And I think that that's really important for us. I want to say those are probably the two biggest shifts in meeting our customers where they are and being empathetic, and then also being a part of sort of the larger conversation, even though we just make notebooks for a living. But yeah.
Yeah, it's finding, I mean, even like, it doesn't matter what you make, like being able to have a voice and use your voice in your community. I think it's so important. And I love how you were inspired by what was happening to get creative with your business. What about with your family time? How has kind of that evolved, or how do you go about planning that through kind of doing everything for Appointed?
Similar to what Amy is saying, I think balance is not necessarily what we're seeking. I think it's just doing the best that you can as a mom, as an employee, as a creative or entrepreneur, and literally day by day seeing, what does my family need today? What does my team need? And I'm very much type A. I'm very much a planner, and a lot of that has gone out the window, and just getting through sometimes just the day or the week, and making really achievable, attainable goals.
No, I love that you say that. I love that you said, don't do overwhelming to-do lists, and also do attainable goals. I feel like sometimes my to-do list is 2 pages long, and I'm like, I'm never going to finish this today. And then I'm not going to sleep because I'm going to be thinking about all the stuff I need to finish. And it's, attainable. Don't do that to yourself. Amy, I would love, so much of your work with OKREAL is also rooted in self-development and community. So as you've navigated this evolution of yourself, how has being a parent impacted your outlook on the power of identity and community?
Cool, big one. Well, I think, so identity, I think whenever you become a mother, you go through such a shift in terms of identity, and you're learning about, this new woman that you are, and this new role that you've taken on, which can, it takes over your life in the best way possible and the hardest way possible. So how does that weave into my business? Well, I think that I've always been so interested in how women navigate all the different facets of our life, whether we have kids, whether we choose not to have children. And so it's really just expanded my respect, my kind of perspective on the capability of women in terms of an identity shift. Like, I became a single mom at 5 months pregnant, completely unexpectedly, and then had to move back to New Zealand. This is a story I'm very open about. And so navigating that shift from being a wife and a business owner and in New York, in my home, and then coming back to New Zealand with this huge identity shift that I wasn't expecting to take on in many ways. But that's also really informed, what I do and how I've had to kind of rebuild my life. And there's that great saying that, life doesn't happen to you, it happens for you. And I think that over the past 2 years, I have this wonderful life here. I've got an incredible partner, and COVID in some ways has just catapulted us into this digital space that we probably really should have been pursuing a lot sooner. And I've heard that from a lot of people in business, that it's really just helped people kind of cut the fat and explore new ways or new forms of revenue. And so these online courses that we're doing, which are all about how to, reset your life in times of trouble, and how to build confidence, and how to cultivate self-worth. They all kind of, my work is very much my life, and my life is my work. And we have a current course out right now on how to build community through mentorship, something that we did in New York, like every weekend for the past several years, was to hold mentorship circles. And that was such a huge part of what we did, and have seen so many incredible life changes from women who've attended. So we took that, we translated that into a course which teaches you how to build your own community through mentorship. So again, in terms of that, how that ties into me, I think that it really took me to, going, well, I think that going through something where, I built this community, and then seeing how much I actually needed it, or how they were there to support me, and the OKREAL community has been so incredible. And the fact that it's still thriving, and I've got, a team member of mine, Meg, who's commenting, she's in Atlanta. She's, been one of the reasons that we've been able to continue doing this. So community is huge. And I think that I would, in terms of kind of posting and talking about, in the realm of that theme, don't be scared to show people who you really are. And I think there's no reason to shy away from that vulnerability. And it's definitely helped me in terms of, being able to connect with more people. So that was a very roundabout way of answering that question. But I guess my point is it all kind of ties in, and there doesn't need to be such a divide, and work and life isn't, binary. It all kind of meshes together nowadays.
Yeah, it's true. It's kind of to what Sai was saying about being relatable, and vulnerability is a part of that. Like, showing the real you, the good and the bad, or the ugly, because then it shows when something amazing happens in your life. It's a lot more like, wow, that's so great. And it gives a lot of hope to people that can happen to them too. And especially in this time that it seems like it's one thing after another that it is going on. It's like, okay, 2020, you're just going to give me all you have. Like,
yeah. Every month is something new.
Totally.
Yeah. Well, I love that. We are at time, but I did want to ask one more question before we go into Q&A from our wonderful attendees. Also, just a reminder, you can add your questions in the Q&A box, and we are going to answer them after this question that I asked everyone else. And so please add them in there, and we will be answering them in a bit. So the last question I would love to ask you is, before we open up to the Q&A, is in the spirit of back to social school. I want to ask y'all if a thought starter or a prompt for our attendees to think about as they build brands or communities in this challenging climate. So based on your experience, what homework would you give our attendees when it comes to making a realistic plan for running a business and a family? And who would like to go first?
I feel like Sue Ann would have a really good answer to this one.
Yeah. Teach us your ways. Yeah.
I try to give very tangible, practical tips that I implement. And it's going back to the to-do list. Is every day I start my day with 3 to 5 things that I feel like I can accomplish that day. And it's usually is mostly work, and it's sometimes a mix of school, or not school, for my kids. So write down the 3 to 5 things. If it's less, totally okay. And of what you want to accomplish that day or that week. And start with the easiest thing first, because there's like this huge feeling of satisfaction, and it promotes productivity when you cross off on that checklist. And it's, you know, and if you have colleagues or if you have a team, just communicate. I think I'm the only person on our team that has kids. And so there have been months where my team has picked up the slack for me, or they know I'm not online from 2 to 4, because that's when I spend time with my kids. So I think those 2 things have been key for me these last 6 months. Little achievable lists and communicating and delegating. And that's, I think right now it's just trying to get through however long this period lasts, in order to be able to be somewhat successful in your work and as a parent, but achievable. Like nothing, I mean, if you want to go big and grand, for sure, do it. But yeah, those would be that would be my homework for everybody.
Yeah, so everyone make achievable list and delegate if you can. That's your homework from Sue Ann. Right?
I'm gonna do it too.
Yeah, me too. Definitely.
Well, we can. Yeah. Oh wait, go ahead.
No, go. I don't have anything. I'm just gonna do Sue Ann's list, because I feel like that is like she nailed it. I think Sue Ann knows more than we do. Yeah. Right. I feel like we're a little bit like thrive in the chaos. Just throw us in the fire.
Yeah.
And Amy will do Sue Ann's homework as well, and we can jump into the Q&A then. We have a question from Rachel. What have your kids taught you about balance during this time?
That there is
I don't care about balance. Yeah, my kids are like, feed me, put on the iPad.
Exactly, yeah. Look at this DIY I just made in the middle of a panel.
Yeah. Look at this Play-Doh that I just rubbed into the carpet. Yeah.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, they don't care. And so, yeah.
Okay. I know. Well, letting you be a little bit more free-spirited.
Just letting things go. I think that's such a huge thing that I am just, every day I'm like, oh, well, that didn't work out. And I think I've noticed somebody mention like, oh, I'm, struggling to kind of keep like self-care and kids and work and things. I can't do all of those without something falling through the cracks. Of course you can't. Of course something is going to fall through the cracks. So I think knowing that you actually can't do all of those things at once at all cylinders firing. And I think being okay with something falling through the cracks every day. I just don't know how women are supposed to achieve this superhero status of like performing at optimum levels. We're humans, we're not computers. And so I think learning to let things go has been huge for me. I'm toilet training right now as well. It's a nightmare. If anybody wants to send me tips, I am just receiving them. So yeah.
Tips, everyone, comment.
My heart goes out to you. I know this phrase very, very well, very well. It's like, just rip the Band-Aid off and let them just, put wee pads around the house.
Yeah, I mean,
yes. We have Kat who says, what is the best part of being your own boss and a parent?
It's funny because when you think about starting your own business and being your own boss, when I was younger, I would think, oh, I can make my own hours, or, I don't have to work that long. I can clock in and clock out and, just kind of, but when you're an entrepreneur, you never stop working. If you're passionate about what you do, it's your life. Like, it's your livelihood, your life is your work is your life. And it's just very hard to break the two. So sometimes you have to force yourself to literally be present and like, you know what, I'm going to step away from work. I'm going to put my phone down. But it's just a very good question because as an entrepreneur, you're just become obsessed with your job. If you are very much so passionate about it, it's just something that you thrive on, right? It's just something you just don't think twice about, I guess. As you can see, I'm passionate. I'm passionate about my job.
Now, if you love it, it's hard, I can imagine, because you live and breathe it. Hopefully it brings you a lot of joy too.
A lot of tears and a lot of joy.
Yes.
Like children.
Like children, exactly.
Yeah,
exactly.
We have a question from Anonymous. How do you ladies handle distractions, especially when doing an intense project that requires all of the energy?
Certain times for if something requires a lot of energy, a lot of focus. Now, obviously, it's different. So I will wake up really, really early or stay up really late. And the late part is not ideal because you're tired. It'll take you longer. But I won't even like start an email or a small task if I have to empty the dishwasher, if I have to make someone's lunch, just because you just can't do either well. So just finish whatever get all the small tasks out of your way if you can. And then try to, if you can, also break up like 45 minutes here, or if you have one, like my 13-year-old thankfully can now watch my 3-year-old a little bit. So I say, hey buddy, I got to take a call, or I got to, do a project or whatever, and he'll watch for 45 minutes. The one thing I've learned about my kids is they are far more resilient than I ever could have imagined. They now know my 3-year-old knows to bring a mask everywhere she goes and knows not to touch and to wash hands, and they get it. And I think my kids, if anything, have seen how hard I work, because now they see me working at home. But yeah, I think the finding time, whether it's self-care or a project or whatnot, is definitely hard right now. But if you can find the 30 minutes or 45 minutes, and then as women and moms, we're like, I do think we're a little bit superhero. Like we're so efficient, we can do so much in a day. So that would be my only tip, but it's hard.
Yeah,
it is hard.
So good. We had a speaker last week, Scott and Jacqueline from State Bags, and they were saying they work that it's really hard to find the balance. But they mentioned exactly what you said, Sue-Ann. Sometimes it's so good for the kids to see their parents working, and see, all the work that they put into what they love, and gaining kind of that work ethic at a young age, I bet is so important too.
This thing back when everybody was in the office, we had this thing, because sometimes you'll get coworkers or somebody coming in and they'll just like go to your desk and tell you about their night or their weekend or something like that when you're in the middle of work. So we did this thing where we would make these almost like these little flags, and it would be, if you put your flag up, you're on a power hour. So if you're on a power hour, that means no one can speak to you, and your phone is down, and you literally just dive into, I put a timer on just because I'm so sporadic and need to do X, Y, Z all at the same time. But if I'm on a power hour, I know I'll just do A and focus on A. So I think doing things like setting some time limits, and if that means that you need to go ahead and set your timer to do it, go for it. I just think that when you see that you have a time, it really makes you focus and just kind of, just get in and crunch whatever it is that you need to do. I mean, I'm just personal experience. I felt like that worked for me, and it worked for everybody else in our office.
Oh, I love that. When we're back to the office, I'm going to have to suggest those little flags.
You're like, power hour.
Yeah, power hour. Don't come ask me a question. Amy, what about you?
Let's see. I think that if I have like something that I really need to focus on, sometimes I have to get up really early, like 4 a.m. to do it, honestly. Depends. I think that it's so hard. If you run a business, you're always kind of doing stuff that's right in front of you, and there's always so many emails and so many little things, but to actually do the work and to step back and really focus on like those bigger projects, it's hard. And so if I need to, I'll get up really early when nobody's up. And I feel like those hours between like kind of 4 and 7 are just golden because nobody's bothering you. Or if I'm going to be more of a normal person and work within normal work hours, I turn off my email on my computer and I turn off my phone. I work with headphones and I just zone in on whatever I'm doing. And I find it so, I mean, I know we're on a Planoly panel right now, but gosh, like Instagram and, you know, email and all of that, it's not even distracting at this point. It's like habitual. And while all of that informs what all of us do, when you're actually trying to kind of get any work done, sometimes you just need to limit all of those distractions. And sometimes I'll put on my to-do list if I have like a course that I'm editing or something that needs a lot of focus. I'll say, okay, well, if you deviate from this project, then you have to do your accounting. Or, you know, I'd set like mental kind of like, okay, well, if you're going to have a break from this, the only thing that you're allowed to work on is something that involves Excel, which I hate. And so that forces me to do the other thing that I really need to focus on. So, yeah, kind of like self-discipline and in ways like
smart.
that.
It's really smart because you're like, I don't want to do accounting. Like, I'd much rather just do this project instead. It's actually pretty smart.
Yeah, you list it like 2 other things that you can do that you hate, and you're like, okay, well, this actually doesn't seem so bad. So
I like that.
Those are my tips.
I'll take those tips too.
I know this is all getting recorded, everyone. So you will have these tips in your inbox this week as well if you didn't get a chance to write them down. I saw that there was a couple, so there's no more questions in the Q&A box, but I saw that there was a couple questions in the chat box. So let me see if we can at least get through one and then we are done. But thank you all for sticking around. I saw that almost no one dropped off at all during this whole panel. So thank you everyone who's stuck around. Let's see, we had one who I think probably a lot of people might think, and it was around delegating. So if it's just you and your husband or just you, who do you delegate to? I don't have any family in town and my husband and I are already doing all we can.
I mean, I feel like the delegating is usually to your husband or to your team. If you don't have a team and you have a husband or significant other, that person is your team. Like, especially if you have children, you guys have to come in and partner together, and it's you two. So you have to delegate, you know, whether that be, hey, could you do lunch or dinner, or could you at least grocery shop while I do this for a certain amount of time, or can you help me with homeschooling on certain days? Like, you guys do have to communicate. I think communication is a huge key in a relationship. And then I always believe in divide and conquer. And I said that when I first gave birth to our daughter, you know, I was exhausted, first time parent. And although he couldn't nurse or he couldn't get up in the middle of the night because we weren't bottle feeding, you know, he made sure I ate, you know, he cooked all the meals and he made sure that, you know, I was, you know, nourished and fed, and made sure that the sheets and everything were clean. So although there were some things that he couldn't do, he really picked up where he could do those things. So if you have a partner or significant other, then definitely communicate and delegate that way. And if it's only you on your job, you can always outsource. When I first started working, I outsourced an assistant. They can live in a different country, wherever the case may be, and that person can definitely help out, whether that be if you're comfortable enough with them checking your emails or getting back to people, delegating somewhere of like, hey, can even making a doctor's appointment seem so strenuous to me sometimes. I'm like, I can't even seem to get myself into the doctor's office just because I don't want to make the appointment because I'm doing so many things at the same time. So, I mean, there's nothing wrong with needing help. I mean, everybody needs help sometimes, and that is okay. So, hey, if you need to outsource some help, go for it. Delegate it, communicate, tell people what you need.
Yeah. And sometimes there's people, you know, recent grads or people who are in college who want the experience and want to learn about your business or what you're doing and are willing to help to kind of, you know, to be able to get that experience. So definitely. Oh, are we gonna get to meet your son, Amy?
Rad boy, come here, baby. So for everybody watching, it's like 6 a.m. in New Zealand. So come here. So I've got a little baby who's just woken up.
Oh,
He's an early riser. Oh, hello.
Say hello.
He's cute.
so perfect. Well, we have finished our questions, and thank you, everyone. If you can all please, Amy, Sue Ann, Sai, go around and let us know where people can learn more about you, learn more about your company, and just stay connected.
Sure. You guys can follow me on Scout the City, like a little Girl Scout, Scout the City. It's my daughter's middle name. And from there are links everywhere, bio, stories, etc.
You can find me, company Instagram is Appointed Co, and our website is appointed.co. And then my personal Instagram is my first and last name @SueAnnSong. Thanks for having me, though. This was fun.
Yay, thank you all.
You can find OKREAL online at okreal.co. You can find us on Instagram at HeyOKReal, and you can find me with lots of baby spam and personal stuff on Instagram at fr.amy.
Well, thank you all so much for taking this time, for
Thank you.
making time, because I know you're so busy with work and your little ones, and I really appreciate it. And everyone, thank you so much for joining. And also next week we will have diversity by design. So please join us for our panel next week. And thank you all, and I hope you have a wonderful week.
Thank you, ladies.
Thank you so much.
Have a good one.
Bye.
Bye.